Have you noticed that some people seem to get more lucky breaks than others who are equally competent? It's almost like there's an invisible force at work. Well, when I tried to give a colleague a golden opportunity, I came across just such an invisible force. And in this case, it was called the vibe that people get about you. And even though it's intangible, like a colorless, odorless gas, it is present and working either for you or against you. Now, vibes are based on the often unconscious cues and clues that you transmit about your attitude, your mindset, and your basic approach to life. And it comes across in what you say and do, including how you sit, how you stand, how you move, and your facial expressions. So here's the story about my colleague. Let's call her Clara. I thought of Clara as a highly competent banker, calm, measured, rational, serious about her work. Yet when I suggested to my department head that she take over one of my key client relationships when I had gotten promoted to a product role, he was not supportive. When I asked why, he shook his head and said, "There's something about the vibe she gives off that makes it hard for people to bond with her. She's cold, clinical. I don't think we can risk it with such an important client." I wondered if Clara knew this about herself and whether she would even agree. But with that kind of assessment, she was unlikely to be a serious candidate for promotion to managing director. And then I recall the time when she walked out of a group event in a huff when the after-dinner cigars came out. And it was true that she rarely joked around or participated in team activities. Now, while no single event was definitive, I could see that when taken together, they created a vibe. And in her case, one that became career limiting. Clara ended up leaving and getting promoted at another firm a few years later. Maybe the environment there was a better fit and her vibe either became more positive or landed more positively. Nonetheless, through it all, there is no question she was hugely competent, but that just wasn't enough. If you want to be a leader, your vibe matters. It contributes to your ability to be successful, and it can drag you down and cause you to underperform your potential. There are two aspects to your vibe. First, what it signals about you. For example, do people get the feeling that you are trustworthy or underhanded, confident or insecure, competent or unreliable, caring or indifferent? The second aspect is the effect it has on others. Basically, do you make other people feel positive, energized, and motivated, or do you bring them down? What's important is that you get to know what vibe you give off and that it matches your intention. You don't want to be inadvertently undermining yourself. So with that in mind, here are 5 negative vibes to watch out for, along with the behavior that could lead others to pick up the wrong vibe and what you could do instead. First, the untrustworthy vibe. When you say, "Hey, can you cut some corners, take a shortcut to make this deadline," versus, "Is there a simpler way to do this so that we can make the deadline?" Second, the unconfident vibe. When you say, "Yeah, I think so," versus, "Yes," or "I'm not sure, but I'll check and get back to you." Third, the incompetent vibe. When you do the equivalent of an eye surgeon hovering over her instruments as she decides which one to pick up versus deciding first and then crisply executing. Fourth, the indifference vibe. When you say, "I don't care how you do it," versus, "I leave it to you to choose how you'd like to get this done." Those 3 words, "I don't care," can inflict more pain than you think. It makes people feel that they don't matter or that what they're working on doesn't matter. And then fifth, the demotivating vibe. When you think and therefore you behave based on ideas like, "These people are idiots who cannot do anything right," versus, "How could I help them learn, grow, and improve?" So remember, people want leaders who give out a positive vibe, so don't fall into those negative traps. It reminds me of the classic World War II movie, Kelly's Heroes, when one of the men gets started criticizing the plan for getting everyone out alive, and the Donald Sutherland character says, "Hey man, no negative waves." So what kind of vibe do you give off to others? And is that helping or hurting the cause?